witnessed over the weekend, that is in Londiani, the bad accident that played out, claiming lives of Kenyans. More than 50 Kenyans lost their lives to this accident. We also witnessed another accident yesterday. And generally, we've had accidents, some equated to bad driving, some equated to carelessness on the road. But, a majority of this, and there's quite a high percentage that has been highlighted, is largely about the structures or the infrastructure itself. And so we get into this conversation where we're going to engage engineer Tom Odago Opio, that is in the conversation of infrastructure and road safety. Engineer, thank you so much for creating time. But even before we get to that space, we also witnessed what played out yesterday. And we have seen the boss, also issuing a concern in relation to that. And he says that, well, we should not have witnessed the, harassment that one of the engineers of Kenya Power, had to go through in the hands of a member of parliament. What do you make of this? Because then this is within your space. And then, of course, we come back to the subject of the day.
Thank you very much, Linda, for having me and asking IKI to come and talk about this important issue of infrastructure and the safety. I think I don't want to talk much about what happened last evening about the Kenya Power, but it's very unfortunate to see an elected leader behaving like that in public. I think the Kenya Power officials were doing their job, and they should have been allowed to do what they are supposed to do.
Right.
So that's all I want to say.
Okay, fair enough. And
our institution has already talked about it.
Yes,
I think there's a statement, and
And by our institution, then we mean the Institution of Engineering or Engineers of Kenya. Yes. That is why then engineer speaks of IEK. And so as we get to this very conversation, road safety has been a concern in the country. And I know there's so much that is being done towards making sure that we arrest this. Just what is the relationship, of, the formation of proper infrastructure in relation to road safety?
Okay, thanks again, Linda. I would like by sending my deep condolences to the family, relatives, and friends of those who lost their lives. More than 50 people dying in one incident is just too much. In fact, we should not have anybody dying on our roads. But it's an unfortunate event that has happened. And I would not like to call it accidents. We call them crashes because they are preventable. And there are a number of reasons why we need to intervene. The first is that if you look at 2022, last year, about 4,700 people died on our roads. About almost 10,000 were seriously injured. And that is the damage, the property damage was even colossal. We don't have that. But these are not numbers, they are people. They are Kenyan people. Can you imagine 4,900 people, 4,700 people dying on the road and 10,000 seriously injured? Some of those who are seriously injured would actually die later on. So it is like we are having something like 400 fatalities every year.
Right.
Now, if you imagine of a Dreamliner, how many people does it carry? 245.
Capacity.
Yeah. So how many people are we killing every year? It is like the Dreamliner crashing 19 times a year, just within Kenya. What do you think will happen?
It's quite huge.
What will happen? They will close our skies. In fact, even one is just too many. It's enough to close our airline. Now, if you look at those accidents, if you could save them, currently, it's costing us something like in the order of about 100 billion a year, whatever you put the cost of life. How much can you do with 100 billion?
So much.
Let me talk about roads. You can construct very high quality roads, about 1,000 kilometers. That's what we are losing. And these numbers, people should translate those numbers into losses. And we see how best we can save as a country. But maybe those people who are responsible for provision of road infrastructure and managing the operations are not aware of this.
And these accidents are largely, or most of them are largely attributed to, the bad roads that we have today. So what would you make of the infrastructure aspect, and especially roads in this case, to overlook the SGRs and any other, form of infrastructure, but generally on the roads today? What do you make of the position and how much the government is doing to make sure that, we have better roads?
I think the government has done a lot to make the roads good. Most of the high traffic volume roads carrying very high traffic are in good condition. Now you can travel all the way from Mombasa, all the way to Malaba without thinking about potholes. I think some of those people who are on the last 5 years may not know what potholes are.
Yeah.
So they have done well on the high volume roads, like the international roads. And even in the counties and everywhere, I think there's a lot of improvement. But it is not just the road condition or the state of road that contribute to accidents.
Yeah.
There are three elements. One is the people, the road users. And road users, we have people who are motorized, people who are non-motorized, we have pedestrians, cyclists, drivers, and so on. Those users are of different, let me say, qualities, different training, different mental condition, and so on. Now, that's one aspect. And most of the road crashes happen because of the human factor. Then there is the road condition that you've talked about. There are roads of different functions. There are roads of different designs. There are roads of different uses.
Right.
That's another element. The last element is the road environment. The vehicle condition. These vehicles are of different sizes, of different speeds, of different capacities, of different mechanical conditions. Now, if you look at those three elements, and there are several characteristics. So you have three, and on this side you have maybe 10 elements. How many conditions can be mixed in that matrix alone?
Right.
3 times 10, 300 conditions, let's say. Any mix of that, any two mixes, is a flash, is a crash. So you cannot blame a crash on just one factor.
Right.
There are several
other factors to it.
Yes.
Okay, let's delve then on the question of infrastructure and just how best to make sure that, that would come in to improve road safety. So what should we do? Or what we need to do is, I've talked about the three elements. Yeah.
First of all, we need to have informed road users. Yeah. And not just informed, but responsible people. People who know that this road is supposed to be shared.
Yeah.
Sometimes people handle the road space like they have a title deed for that space. But they know that they own it now, somebody else needs to own it next, another one next. So we need people who are well informed and responsible.
Okay.
And responsible does not mean that you just give way. If you do something wrong, you should be ready to be punished. You should not see it as, something bad. The second thing is that we need well-built and maintained vehicles. Sometimes you have matatu crashes, and when you look at the matatu crash, it's just a shell. These people did not have anything to protect them from that crash. So we need well-built and maintained vehicles. And lastly, we need the road environment. We need to design the road environment to be self-explaining. Like if you are driving, you should be able as a driver to see, I think very soon I'll be getting into an urban area. Or very soon I'm getting into a school zone.
Yeah.
Or very soon I need to go slow. There should be signs, there should be marking, there should be things that you see that just tell you, I need to change my how I operate the vehicle. So those three things, we must address all of that to get this situation in
order. The safety engineers, so to speak, and the brains that are, engaged in terms of making sure that we have this infrastructure, and proper infrastructure for that. What goes into this? What are the processes until we can confidently say that now this is a road that is up to standards for, people to be able to use? And even how far do we have to go in terms of making sure that the road users are enlightened? Because most of the times, You will enlighten, these people who are drivers. They will perhaps go through the trainings and all that. But maybe the pedestrians do not get a chance to be taught of this. I remember the only time that I was taught of this is when I was in primary school. And I think I've been using the look left and all that. But times have changed, really, if we are to look at this whole matter. So how far do we need to go, and who is involved in making sure that as well the masses are well informed on how they use the roads?
What we need is to ensure that all road users have good education. Good education means, like you are told, look
right, look left
right.
and right again.
But that was only when you have a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
Now when you have 3 or 4,
yeah.
when you look right, you look left. When you look right again, there's another vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes not good to even teach that kind of thing. You should just say, if you are a child, get an adult to help you cross the road.
Right.
Rather than telling a 10-year-old to look left, right, and to cross the road. It may be more disastrous. Sometimes also just putting a zebra crossing is not enough. So people need to have good education all through. Road users, people who are not using roads, everybody should have a good education on how to use the road.
Okay.
We also we need to have good engineering. I know that we do, in our engineering design, we look at safety. It is inbuilt. But sometimes we don't look at that good engineering from planning to operation, construction, design, up to operation. All that process needs to be audited. And anytime that something is found, it must be corrected.
Right.
Then, of course, as I've said, we need good enforcement. All these things that we do, there must be rules. And those rules must be enforced. The laws must be enforced.
Right.
So if any of these 3,
the ease of road safety.
The 3 E's, they call it 3 E's. But there is more. We also need good post-crash response. We also need good rescue and medical care. Those are also required because we know accidents will happen or crashes will happen. If they happen, what is the next processes?
Yeah.
Are they good processes that can get somebody who is seriously injured to recover? Or is it one which will get somebody seriously injured into a fatality? So all those things need to be looked at.
Okay.
That way you'll have a sustainable system. Now you asked about, as engineers, there are some 3 rules that we need to consider. There's what you call the 6-second rule. If something happens, what happens in the first 6 seconds is the most important.
Okay.
You as a driver. Suddenly, a dog runs across the road. What do you think first in the 6 seconds? So let's say you're going at 100 kilometers per hour. Do you know where you will be in 6 seconds? You'll be 170 meters ahead. Now, that is where the stage you are going to react. Now, if this dog crossed about 50 meters from where you are driving, you know what happens. You stop and the dog will be dead behind you. Or, unfortunately, it could be a person or a child running across the road. So the issue of 6-second rule, you must observe that. You must give a driver enough time to react so that that incident does not result into a crash. Yeah? The other one is what is called the field of view rule, where what is in the field of view of the driver? If the information is too much, then the driver may not be able to interpret it within the 6 seconds and make the right decision. So you need to give the driver information much earlier before that hazard can come up. And the last one is what's called logic rule. Logically, you should be driving and you know, if I see this road or this mark like this, I expect there's a sharp bend ahead. And you anticipate that so that you don't make the wrong decisions. You make the right decisions. And what happens within the 6 seconds is very important because some things happen subconsciously. You will, depending on your experience, depending on your condition and everything. Of course, when we design roads, we think people are standard, fresh, good mental health, and the car is okay, the road is, but that's not the situation. I may be standard now, but the next minute I get a bad news, I become very substandard, but I will still be on the traffic stream. And one person can just cause a mess to everything. So we need to look at that as engineers. Those 3 rules are very important.
Very important rules as engineers, right? But then how is this inculcated out there to the driver, to the people to know? Do you suppose we need to do more in terms of, the lessons that we pick, even at the driving level?
Yeah, that's why I said we need to have good education, public awareness.
What is stopping us from getting there?
I think maybe we don't engage stakeholders adequately and tell them what we are doing.
Are the stakeholders pushing for this engagement, realizing the importance?
I think as professionals, we should push for these stakeholders to be involved. And we should involve all stakeholders, users, non-users, drivers, and everybody. When we start creating the environment as engineers, we should inform even land use people, planners, and everybody what we intend to provide. And then they can also give us feedback. No, you're putting a pedestrian crossing here. We don't cross there. We cross the other place. And then what kind of crossing do you need? They will tell you. Actually, what you will find in engineering, common sense at some point. If you go and call all those users together, they will tell you what they need. Then what you need to do is engineer it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what, as we perhaps come to a close, how do we round it up by saying what would be the most effective approach to controlling a hazard? Because this is bound to happen and all this information perhaps is out there, maybe not at the disposal of many. And we all agree that there is a gap that needs to be filled.
I think you asked me earlier on about who should be involved.
Yeah.
I think all of us should be involved in solving this issue, because it must be a collaborative approach.
Yeah.
Now you would say it's only the Ministry of Roads and Transport. Somebody else will say, no, it's the drivers. Somebody will say, no, it's the land use people. The county government is approving, incompatible uses along the roads and so on. No, all of those people should be on the table.
Right.
And discussing not just what has happened, even when it happened, like what happened in Londiani, they should sit, there should be more people around the table, not just the Kenya engineers or Ministry of Roads and Transport and all that. Ministry of Health should be there, Ministry of Trade should be there, Ministry of Health should be there. The health burden because of crashes is too much. Yeah. So it should be a collaborative effort. And of course, the Ministry of Roads and Transport will take the lead in bringing all these people together so that a solution is solved. But again, it should not be just in Kenya. We must look at the regional aspect, because there are some vehicles on our roads that are actually from other countries.
It's true.
So if you have traffic rules that are not the same as the other countries, when they come here, they expect something different.
Right.
We need to have a regional approach to this problem.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially as in Kenya.
And a very important, factor here, the CS and reactionary. Many would want to term it that way, but still, a progress, as you have said. We have discussions prior and even during, hazardous times and even beyond. He recommends that we have cameras, in PSVs and all that, so that they can capture the moments in the event of a tragedy. What do you make of that?
I think that's a very good proposal.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have to, as a country, to adopt is use of IT technology to monitor what is happening on our roads. So what the CS talked about is good.
Yeah.
But even enforcement, we should have, whatever cameras or we capture the situations that are happening where the evidence is there that the police can use to actually prosecute the offenders. And also, it's not just IT. We should also use psychology to deal with the road issues and road crashes. For example, I know in a country where they put signs and they say, before you use that phone, think about us. And you keep seeing that on the road. When you see that, when you are thinking of taking your phone, the next thing he says, and there is a picture of a policeman just in the window trying to say, and it works, psychology. And they say, you can take past these red lights, but we will soon
get a hold of you.
And they will.
Yes.
So that's the kind of thing we need to do, because two policemen standing in Londiani, another one in Kericho, what happens between? We need technology capture what happened in between.
An overhaul would require, of course, not to look at the figures and all that. Just how demanding would it be for us to get a proper overhaul that, will standardize these activities across, the region, as you rightfully put it, until we say that we are somewhere?
I think I would not like to say that funds are not there or the funding levels. I don't know. What we need to do is that when we create infrastructure, we must create infrastructure that is sustainable, that is not taking away the benefits we expect. So if you are to do, say you are to do 200 kilometers, and you know that with the money you have, you cannot do 200 kilometers well, why don't you do 150 and do it properly? So the issue of funding is not there. It should be that money you have, even if it's 150 kilometers, provide a safe 150 kilometers with all the elements that you need, rather than trying to stretch this money. You build a road of 200 kilometers, you don't put markings, you don't put anything, nothing. Then you say, we built 200 kilometers.
The balance.
To kill the people you want to transport. It's not fair.
Not fair.
So if you can't do 200 properly, do even 100.
Okay.
But do it that it's not taking people's lives.
Wow.
It shouldn't happen.
It should not.
If, say, you are building a road in town, put pedestrian walkways. Don't say that, there's no money. Let's take the pedestrian walkways and put it for the vehicles. Transport is meant for people and goods, not vehicles. That's where we miss it.
That's where we miss it. Most of the times, the people who are walking are not so lucky to get spaces where they can walk freely and all. And I had bikers the other day who kept on complaining, can you please allow us as well to use the roads because they are for all of us?
You see, if, say, you want to design a road from Kibera to industrial area, who are the people you want to transport? The Kibera people. What do they have? What vehicles do they have? What mode of transport do they use? They walk. Then somebody says, okay, let's put a dual carriage. Then you take away
the luxury of this.
But the problem is that most of the people who make decisions on how to spend money on infrastructure are not working.
Sadly. So they will think about themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
So until they get to the point of they start saying these pedestrians, they should walk there and they are taking space, they realize that there is no space for those people. The only place they can walk is inside the train.
Unfortunately.
If they were faced with that condition, they'll do exactly what the pedestrians are doing. Then they say the pedestrians, we have built a footbridge, they're not following, these people are crazy. It's the engineer and those who provided the wrong infrastructure that are crazy.
Well, as we close, your parting shot. I know that is a very good way to end it at, but yes.
Yeah, I think the road crash problem is serious. The impacts are heavy. We are talking about people. We are not talking about numbers. We must take this issue seriously.
Right.
Because now we are counting 52 people died in Londiani. Yeah, with their numbers. If you are one of those, think about it. Now you'll say, they are talking so much. I'm dead. How does that help? Let's take this issue seriously. And it is not that it's impossible to deal with. There are solutions.
Well put. There are solutions because you started by saying that most of these accidents are accidents that we can avoid.
They are not accidents, they are crashes.
They are crashes, actually, because we can avoid them.
Yes.
Well put. Thank you so much. A representative of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, IEK, Engineer Tom Odago Opio. Great insights right there. We understand that, yes, it is a stakeholder affair in the sense that